An old woman complained about her neighbor. What I found was a perfect replica of her life. I can't stop thinking about the woman in Copenhagen, the one who said her neighbor was stealing her life. I think I finally understand what was happening in that apartment, and the thought is making the walls of my own home feel thin as paper. This was years ago. A job in a part of the city that tourists never see. The commission came from a woman in her late 70s, Annalise. She lived on the third floor of a concrete block that looked like it was actively surrendering to gravity and despair. The air outside tasted like diesel fumes and wet cigarettes. It was quiet, but the wrong kind of quiet. I held breath. Men in coats that looked permanently damp huddled around a bench, their faces gray, their hands wrapped around cheap beer cans. Teenagers with baggy jeans slouched on the steps, whispering to each other through clouds of vape smoke. The whole damn neighborhood was a smear of gray and brown, except for one thing. A child's bicycle propped against a graffiti-scarred wall. It was bright, metallic pink. The paint was perfect. Someone had woven glittery tassels into the handlebars and stuck plastic glow in the dark stars on the spokes. It was so clean, so cared for, it felt like a threat. Inside the building, the world turned a sick, nicotine yellow. The smell of old smoke and piss was baked into the walls. There was no elevator, just a winding staircase that groaned under my weight, the wood soft in places, like it was starting to rot from the inside out. Her apartment was at the end of a narrow hall, flanked by doors that looked like they hadn't been opened in a decade. A small, laminated nameplate, ANE, LK, confirmed I was in the right place. The door swung open before my knuckles even touched the wood. She stood there beaming, a tiny woman swallowed by a massive, hand-knitted cardigan. Her hair was white and thin, pulled back so tight it stretched the skin at her temples. She radiated the kind of warmth that makes you want to trust someone instantly. It put me on edge. "You're here," she said, her voice a rapid, lilting Danish. I had to strain to follow. "Thank goodness, the tea is ready." "Come in, come in." My hand was still raised to knock. I let it fall. Before I could say a word, she grabbed my jacket sleeve with a surprising strength and pulled me inside, still talking a mile a minute. It was like she was trying to fill every pocket of silence in the apartment with her own voice. The place was small, but tidy, obsessively so. Every flat surface was covered in a lace doily, and on every doily sat a little porcelain figurine. Ducks, cats, ladies with elaborate hats. They stared out with blank, painted eyes. She steered me to a worn, red satin couch and then settled into an armchair opposite me. She leaned forward, her hands clasped tight in her lap. 2 cups of tea were already steaming on the low table between us. I have no idea how she timed that. "It's the woman downstairs," she said, and the warmth in her voice vanished. It became sharp, brittle. "She's copying me." I blinked. I must have heard her wrong. The Danish accent, the speed. "I'm sorry, she, what, copies me?" she repeated, her eyes wide. "Everything. Everything." I put the kettle on. I hear her kettle click on a second later. I sweep the floor. I hear her broom whispering right below my feet. I go to the bathroom. Okay, I cut in, holding up a hand. A familiar disappointment settled in my stomach. Have you tried talking to her about this?" She leaned in, tilting her head as if listening to something I couldn't hear. "I can't. My hip. The surgery. I can't manage the stairs. But I know she's there." I move a chair, scrape. She moves her chair. I can hear it, but her scrape is cleaner, sharper. She does it better. I pulled out my notebook, more out of habit than necessity. I wasn't feeling a thing. No cold spots, no pressure, no telltale scent of ozone or decay. The apartment just smelled old, like dust and dried flowers and the faint, rubbery scent of a hot water bottle. It was sad. A lonely old woman, trapped in her apartment, her mind playing tricks on her. "And how long has this been going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice gentle. Annalise huffed, leaning back. "Months, so many months. But it's worse now, much worse. I can't even look in the mirror anymore. She gestured a bony hand toward a tall rectangular shape covered by a white bedsheet. That's not my kitchen in there, it's hers. My gaze followed her gesture. The shape was unmistakable. Do you mind? I asked, standing up. She just nodded, a flicker of something like hope in her eyes. Please. You have to make her stop. This is part of the job they don't tell you about. The quiet, heartbreaking calls where the monster isn't real. Where you just end up trying to comfort someone who's terrified of their own shadow. I walked over to the covered object and pulled off the sheet. A little puff of dust danced in the weak afternoon light. It was just a mirror. An old, ornate thing with a tarnished silver frame. The glass was clean, though covered in a web of fine scratches from years of wiping. Near the bottom, someone had drawn 2 lopsided hearts in red wax crayon. Grandkids, maybe. My own reflection looked back at me. Tired, rumpled, nothing out of the ordinary. In the reflections corner, I could see Annalise's legs, crossed at the ankle. I turned back to her slowly. It seems okay to me, I said with a soft smile. I think, no. Her face went hard, her voice like stone. She's hiding. She knows you're here. She's pretending to be you. The shift was so sudden it startled me. All right. Okay. Tell you what. I'll go downstairs. I'll do a quick sweep, try to talk to this neighbor, see what's what. Sound good? She nodded, the tension leaving her shoulders. Yes. Oh, yes. Please. Tell her to leave me alone. I almost didn't go. My gut told me to just take a walk around the block, come back and tell her I'd scared the neighbor off. Getting other people involved is messy. You can create anchors where there were none, give a stray thought enough power to take root. But she looked so much like my own grandmother. The pictures on her wall of smiling children and stern-looking men in suits didn't help. Guilt is a powerful motivator, so I went. Down one flight of the groaning stairs. Down the piss-yellow hallway. I found the door right away. I didn't need to check the number, it was perfect. While every other door was peeling and stained, this one was a deep, rich mahogany, gleaming as if it had been oiled that morning. The brass handle shined, and the door wasn't quite shut. I tapped it lightly. Hello? Sorry to bother you. I'm here about the woman upstairs. My voice trailed off. I nudged the door with my fingertips. It swung open without a sound. My breath caught in my throat. The apartment was dark, but immaculate. Not a speck of dust hung in the shafts of light cutting through the window. It had that same old lady smell, but better. A hint of expensive perfume, of lemon polish and beeswax. The ghost of baked bread. It smelled like a memory of a perfect home. And it was identical, not just the floor plan. The empty picture frames on the wall were the same scrolled, tarnished silver. The red satin couch. The armchair with its faded floral pattern. The 2 teacups on the table, sitting on identical cork coasters. The porcelain cat and duck on the side table, arranged in the same playful pose on the same fucking doily. The hair on my arms stood straight up. My hand went to the charm in my pocket, its familiar weight doing little to calm the frantic hammering in my chest. I stepped over the threshold. The air was warm and still. My footsteps echoed too loud. Hello, I tried again. My voice was a whisper. The silence that answered was absolute. I moved toward the kitchen. In the hallway mirror, I saw my own movement, a shadow flitting at the edge of my vision. It was the only thing that moved. The kettle on the stove gleamed. I reached out, my fingers trembling, and touched its curved side. It was warm, not hot like it had just boiled, but holding a deep, living warmth. Every nerve screamed at me to get the fuck out. But I couldn't feel any presence, any entity. Just a profound and terrifying wrongness. I had to be sure. I pushed open the bedroom door. The bed was made with military precision. The pillows plumped and chopped. A cardigan, the same hand-knitted cardigan, was laid out carefully on the crisp white duvet. Okay, I breathed, the words sounding hollow. Copycat decor ghost. Right. Sure. On my way out, I glanced at the hallway mirror again. There was a smudge on it I hadn't noticed before, near the top, like a greasy fingerprint someone had tried to wipe away. I leaned in for a closer look. My reflection leaned in with me, but its eyes didn't track with mine. For a split second, they stayed fixed, looking past my shoulder into the empty apartment behind me. I recoiled, stumbling back into the hall. I slammed the door shut, my heart trying to beat its way out of my ribcage. I leaned against the grimy wall, fumbling for my notebook. No occupant. Apartment below is a duplicate. Reflection anomaly. It felt heavier going back up the stairs. My mind was a whirlwind. What the hell was this? It didn't feel malicious, just parasitic. I decided I'd tell her I was looking into it, that I needed to do some research. Maybe even lie and say the neighbor was moving out. Anything to keep her calm, to stop her from feeding whatever the hell this thing was. I reached her door and knocked. No answer. The door was unlocked. It had only been 10, maybe 15 minutes. I pushed it open. "Ma'am? Annalise?" The smell hit me first. A thick, sweet, syrupy smell that coated the inside of my mouth. Rot. Not animal rot. Human. I froze in the doorway. The apartment looked the same. The teacups were still on the table, their contents now cold. The armchair was empty, but it had been turned slightly. It was now facing the uncovered mirror. "Annalise?" I called again, but the word was dead as soon as it left my lips. My throat was tight as a fist. I walked inside. The floorboards creaked. Was it this dusty before? A fine gray powder seemed to cover everything. She was in the bedroom, on the bed, wrapped in her cardigan. Her eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling. Her mouth was slack. Her skin had the waxy, translucent quality of old parchment pulled taut over her bones. The bedsheets beneath her were soaked through with a dark, sprawling stain. I just stood there, watched her. The warm kettle downstairs. It had been her warmth, her life. I backed out of the room, my phone already in my hand. I made the call, gave the address, said what I had to. My handler asked if I wanted to wait. I said no. Stepping back into the hallway, I glanced one last time at the mirror, and I saw her. Just for a second, a flicker in the reflection. Annalise, standing in her kitchen, humming as she put the kettle on. She looked peaceful, happy even. On my way out, I checked the apartment on the second floor. The door was locked tight. It was covered in the same yellow grime and dust as all the others, like it had been sealed for years. When I stepped outside, back into the gray air, I looked up. I saw a figure standing in a window watching me. A tall woman in a cardigan. She was on the second floor. I never filed the full report. They sent a follow-up request weeks later, but I ignored it. Officially, it was nothing. Just an old woman who died alone. I don't know why that case came back to me so forcefully tonight. The smell, the silence of that perfect apartment. It's been chasing me all day. As I've been dealing with my own situation, I think I'm starting to have some thoughts that are scarier than what's been happening here. I don't really have anyone. If I vanished tonight, who would notice? How long would it take? Where would my reflection go? The wallpaper in my hallway is starting to bulge. When the evening light hits it, the shadows make it look like the wall is breathing. It looks damp. Not like a fresh leak, but an old stain, the kind that seeps through from the inside. A greasy, dark patch. It's the shape of a person. A tall, thin person just standing there. And sometimes, when I get close, I can smell it, faintly. Lemon polish and rot. I think I have to face it tonight. I think this might be the last time I can. I am so fucking scared.